The chamber was massive. Daniel Carter stood in the center, his hands bound in energy cuffs that glowed blue in the dim light. Above him, the Galactic Council sat in a circle of raised platforms. Each platform held a different species. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like walking plants. All of them were staring down at him. Daniel kept his back straight. His uniform had been stripped of all rank insignia. Where his medals once hung, there was only bare fabric. He had worn that uniform with pride for 15 years. Now it meant nothing. Ambassador Zexthor spoke first. The reptilian creature's voice echoed through the chamber like stones grinding together. Captain Daniel Carter, you stand accused of war crimes during the Frontier Wars. How do you plead? Not guilty, Daniel said. His voice was calm and clear. A murmur ran through the council. Zexthor's eyes narrowed. The evidence against you is overwhelming. Witness testimony places you at the Redwater Colony massacre. 200 civilian lives were lost. All. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest, but he pushed it down. I was at Redwater Colony, but there was no massacre. There was a battle. The hologram projector in the center of the room flickered to life. Images appeared in the air. Buildings burned. Bodies lay in the streets. Children cried over fallen parents. Daniel watched it all without flinching. He had seen these images 1,000 times in his nightmares. Does this look like a battle to you? Zexthor demanded. Show them the full recording, Daniel said. Show them what happened before I arrived. Zexthor waved a clawed hand. We have seen enough. No. You haven't. Daniel took a step forward. The guards moved toward him. But he stopped. The raiders came first. They killed half the colony before my ship even got the distress call. When I arrived, they were loading children onto slave ships. I did what I had to do to stop them. You destroyed 3 ships that had already surrendered, another council member said. This one looked like a massive insect with wings that shimmered like oil. You violated the rules of war. Daniel's jaw tightened. They hadn't surrendered. They were retreating to regroup. I've fought raiders for 10 years. I know their tactics. If I had let them go, they would have hit another colony within a week. You cannot know that, Zexthor said. I do know that. Because I tracked them for months before Redwater. They hit 6 colonies in 3 months. Killed thousands. Took hundreds more as slaves. When I finally had a chance to stop them, I took it. The council chamber fell silent. Daniel could see them looking at each other, communicating in ways he couldn't hear. Finally, a new voice spoke. It came from the human section of the council. Senator Gregory Blake stood up. Daniel's stomach turned to ice when he saw him. Blake was wearing expensive robes and had a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Captain Carter, Blake said smoothly. I've known you for many years. I've always admired your dedication to protecting innocent lives. But surely you can see why your actions trouble the council. What I see, Daniel said slowly, is a politician who cares more about trade deals than justice. Blake's smile didn't waver. The council has worked hard to bring peace to this sector. Your aggressive tactics threaten that peace. The raider clans you destroyed had families, communities. Your attack has destabilized an entire region. They were slavers and murderers, Daniel shot back. They chose their path, and you chose yours, Blake said. The council must consider the bigger picture. Earth wants to maintain good relations with all species, even the difficult ones. Your actions make that harder. Daniel understood then. This wasn't about justice. It was about politics. Earth wanted better trade routes, better technology, better access to council resources. And Daniel had become inconvenient. The hologram changed. Admiral Lisa Morgan appeared. She looked older than Daniel remembered. Tired. She had been his commanding officer for 8 years. She had taught him everything he knew about space combat. Admiral Morgan, Zexthor said. You commanded Captain Carter for most of his career. What is your assessment? Lisa looked at Daniel. For a moment, something like regret crossed her face. Then it was gone. Captain Carter is a good officer, but he has always been difficult to control. He follows his conscience more than his orders. In peacetime, we need soldiers who follow orders. The words hit Daniel harder than any weapon. Lisa had always backed him before, always stood up for him when politicians complained about his methods. But not anymore. "Thank you, Admiral," Zexthor said. Lisa's image disappeared. The council deliberated for less than 10 minutes. Daniel knew the decision had been made before he even entered the chamber. This was just theater. Zexthor stood. "Captain Daniel Carter, this council finds you guilty of war crimes and excessive use of force. Your actions have brought shame to humanity and threatened the peace we have worked so hard to build." Daniel said nothing. "You are hereby stripped of your rank and honors. You are banished to the void sector, beyond council space. You will never be permitted to return to any council world. If you attempt to do so, you will be killed on sight." "Do you have anything to say?" Daniel looked up at the council. He looked at each member, one by one. Then he looked at Gregory Blake, who was trying hard not to smile. "I have one thing to say," Daniel replied. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the whole chamber. "You're making a mistake. Not because I'm innocent. I knew the risks when I pulled that trigger, but you're teaching me a lesson I'll never forget." "And what lesson is that?" Zexthor asked. "That mercy is weakness. That following the rules gets good people killed. That the only law that matters is power." Daniel smiled, but there was no humor in it. "You're sending me to a place with no rules, no council, no consequences. You're showing me what happens when I have nothing left to lose." Zexthor leaned forward. "Is that a threat?" "No," Daniel said. "It's a warning. One day, you'll regret this decision. When that day comes, remember that you made me what I'll become." The guards grabbed his arms. They dragged him toward the exit. Daniel didn't resist. He kept his head high as they pulled him through the doors. Behind him, he heard Blake's voice. A dramatic exit, but ultimately meaningless. What can one man do alone? Daniel smiled to himself. Blake would find out soon enough. The ship that took him to the void sector was old and barely functional. The pilot didn't speak to him. The guards dumped him in a cell that smelled like rust and fear. Through the small window, Daniel watched as the bright stars of council space faded behind them. Ahead lay darkness. The void sector was called that for a reason. It was where the council sent everything they wanted to forget. Criminals, exiles, failed experiments, broken people. Daniel pressed his hand against the cold metal wall. He thought about Lisa's betrayal, Blake's smug face, the council's fear. They had taken everything from him, his rank, his honor, his home, but they had also freed him. Out in the void, there were no rules to follow, no politicians to appease, no council to restrain him. He would build something new, something better, something that would make them all remember his name. The ship jumped to faster than light speed. Daniel Carter left his old life behind and flew toward his future. The transport ship dumped Daniel at Blackstone Station and left without a word. He stood on the docking platform and stared at what would be his new home. Blackstone was ugly. The station was built from scrapped ships welded together in no particular pattern. Lights flickered. The air smelled like oil and sweat. Creatures of every species moved through the corridors. Most of them looked dangerous. Daniel had one bag. Inside was a change of clothes, a knife, and the credits the council had given him. It was barely enough to survive for a month. A Kronar with 4 arms stepped in front of him. The alien was twice Daniel's size and covered in scars. "New meat, give me your bag." Daniel looked at the Kronar. He looked at the crowd that was starting to gather. Everyone was watching to see what he would do. "No," Daniel said simply. The Kronar laughed. It sounded like rocks in a grinder. "I take it anyway." The alien reached for the bag. Daniel moved. He grabbed one of the Kronar's arms and twisted. Bone cracked. The Kronar screamed. Daniel swept the alien's legs and put him face down on the deck. He pressed his knee into the Kronar's back. I said no, Daniel repeated. The crowd murmured. Some moved closer. Others backed away. Daniel could feel the tension building. If he showed weakness now, he was dead. Anyone else want to try? Daniel asked loudly. No one moved. Daniel let the Kronar go and picked up his bag. He walked through the crowd like they weren't there. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. Behind him, he heard the Kronar cursing in 3 different languages. He found a cheap room in the lower levels. The door didn't lock properly. The bed was a metal slab. The walls were so thin he could hear fighting in the next room. But it was shelter. Daniel lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling. This was rock bottom. He had gone from council hero to station trash in one day. Good. Rock bottom meant there was nowhere to go but up. The next morning, Daniel went looking for work. The station had a central market where people posted jobs. Most of them were illegal. Smuggling, theft, muscle work for gang bosses. He was reading the postings when someone spoke behind him. You're the one who put Grax on his face yesterday. None. Daniel turned. A human man stood there, maybe 40 years old, with grease stains on his clothes and a mechanical eye. His real eye was blue and sharp. He started it, Daniel said. I know. Everyone starts everything here. The man held out his hand. Jake Murphy. Engineer. Former pirate. Current survivor. Daniel shook his hand. Daniel Carter, former captain. Current exile. Jake's eyebrow went up. Carter? The Carter? The one who got banished for killing raiders? News travels fast. The good kind of news does. Jake smiled. Come on. I'll buy you a drink. Anyone who pisses off the council and lives to talk about it deserves a drink. They went to a bar that looked like it had been built inside an old cargo hold. The tables were mismatched. The bartender had tentacles. The drinks came in containers that might not have been cleaned in weeks. Jake ordered something that glowed green. Daniel stuck with water. So, Jake said, what's your plan? Hide here until you die of old age? No, Daniel said. I'm going to build something. Jake laughed. Then he stopped when he saw Daniel's face. You're serious? Dead serious. Build what? This is the void. There's nothing here but criminals and people the council threw away. Exactly, Daniel said. The council throws away anything that threatens them. That means there's talent here. People with skills. People with nothing to lose. I'm going to find them. Jake stared at him for a long moment. You're either crazy or brilliant. Maybe both. He leaned back. All right. I'll help. But first, we need to deal with your bounty. What bounty? The one the council put on your head. 10,000 credits. Dead or alive. But preferably dead. There's probably 3 different killers tracking you right now. Daniel felt cold. How do you know this? I know people who trade information. Jake finished his drink. There's someone you should meet. She knows everything that happens in the void. They left the bar and went deeper into the station. The corridors got darker. The people got scarier. Jake led Daniel to a door with no marking. He knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked twice more. The door opened. Inside was a lab that looked completely out of place. Clean, organized, full of equipment that probably cost more than the entire station. A woman looked up from a microscope. She was in her 50s, with gray hair tied back and intelligent eyes. Jake, you're still alive. Surprising. Patricia. Meet Daniel Carter. Daniel. This is Dr. Patricia Hughes, best xenobiologist in council space. Also exiled. Patricia looked at Daniel with interest. The famous captain. I heard you arrived yesterday. I also heard you have a price on your head. So everyone keeps telling me, Daniel said. Sit down before someone collects it, Patricia said. She gestured to chairs. Jake. Close the door. They sat. Patricia pulled up a hologram display. It showed names and faces. 3 bounty hunters are currently on the station. 2 arrived this morning. 1 has been here for a week, probably waiting for you. They'll make their move soon. Thanks for watching. What do you suggest? Daniel asked. Kill them first, Patricia said simply. Or leave the station. Those are your options. Or option 3, Jake said. We make them work for us instead. Both Patricia and Daniel looked at him. Jake shrugged. Bounty hunters work for money. We just need to offer them more than the council is paying. With what money? Daniel asked. I have maybe 1,000 credits left. I have money, Patricia said quietly. Enough to match the bounty and then some. But I want something in return. What? Daniel asked. Patricia switched the hologram. It showed a map of the void sector. Dozens of systems, all outside council space. I've been studying this region for 5 years. There are things here the council doesn't want anyone to know about. Ancient technology. Ruins from species that died out millions of years ago. Some of it still works. She zoomed in on one system. This planet. I've been trying to get there for 3 years. But it's controlled by a warlord named Vex. He kills anyone who gets close. I need someone who can fight. Someone who can protect a research team. Daniel studied the map. You want me to fight a warlord for you. I want you to fight for something bigger than yourself. If the technology on that planet is real, it could change everything. Faster ships, better weapons. Medical advances the council has kept secret. Patricia looked at him. You said you want to build something. This is how you start. Daniel thought about it. He had no money, no ship, no crew. But he had skills. And he had nothing to lose. All right, he said. I'm in. But I need more than just a research trip. I need a plan for what comes after. After we get rich and powerful? Jake asked with a grin. After we build something that lasts, Daniel corrected. The council banished me because I was inconvenient. They're scared of humans who don't follow their rules. So we build a place where there are no rules. Where people are judged by what they can do, not what species they are. Patricia smiled. A sanctuary, an empire, Daniel said. Small at first. Just this station, maybe. But it grows. We take in everyone the council throws away. We protect them. Train them. Give them purpose. The council won't like that, Jake pointed out. I don't care what the council likes anymore, Daniel said. They made their choice. Now I'm making mine. The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment. Then Patricia stood and held out her hand. Partners? Daniel shook it. Partners. Jake shook both their hands. This is either going to be amazing or get us all killed. Probably both. Over the next week, they put their plan into motion. Patricia bought off the bounty hunters. 2 of them took the money and left. The 3rd one refused. Daniel found him in a corridor with a gun. They fought. Daniel won. Word spread fast after that. They gathered more people. A Kronar mechanic who had been cheated by his employer. A human pilot who had been framed for smuggling. An insectoid warrior whose species had been enslaved by a council member race. Each one had been discarded. Each one had skills. Daniel gave them a choice. Work together or stay trapped in the void forever. They chose to work together. They pooled their resources and rented a larger space. It wasn't much. Just a warehouse on the edge of the station. But it was theirs. Daniel stood in the center of the empty warehouse and looked at the 12 people who had joined him. Humans and aliens. All of them desperate. All of them angry at the council. This is day 1, Daniel said. We're going to build something here. Not just for us. For everyone the council has forgotten. We're going to prove that they were wrong to throw us away. Also the council. Jake activated a hologram. It showed the planet Patricia wanted to explore. First, we get what's on that planet. Then we get stronger. Then we make the council notice us. And then, someone asked. Daniel smiled. Then we make them regret it. The warehouse erupted in cheers. 5 years changed everything. Daniel stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station and looked out at the fleet below. 20 ships. Not much compared to Council fleets, but each one was crewed by people who believed in what they were building. New Haven wasn't just a station anymore. It was a city. They had expanded the old warehouse into a proper settlement. 50,000 people now called it home. Humans and aliens living together, working together, building together. The door opened behind him. Commander Helen Ross walked in. She had defected from the Council Navy 6 months ago, bringing her entire battle group with her. 8 ships and 3,000 crew. It had been the biggest blow to Council authority in decades. "Morning briefing is ready," Helen said. She was tall, with short, dark hair and the bearing of someone who had spent her life in uniform. "Victor wants to show you something." They walked through the station corridors. Everything was clean and organized now. They had rules, laws, but they were fair laws. Everyone got a vote. Everyone had a say. The conference room was full. Jake sat at the head of the table, his mechanical eye glowing as he reviewed data. Patricia was there, along with Viktor Sokolov, the tactical genius who had joined them 2 years ago. Also present was Kreenax, the insectoid warrior who commanded their ground forces, and there was someone new, an alien Daniel didn't recognize, tall and thin, with silver skin and 3 eyes. "Daniel," Victor said in his thick accent, "meet Ambassador Tehran. He represents the Silerin Collective, a minor species from Council space." Tehran stood and bowed. "Captain Carter, I bring greetings from my people." "And a request." Daniel sat down. "I'm listening." "The Council is squeezing us," Tehran said. "Taxes keep going up. Regulations keep getting stricter. They treat us like servants, like we exist only to serve the major species." He leaned forward. "We have heard about what you are building here, a place where all species are equal, where merit matters more than politics." "That's the idea," Daniel said. "My people wish to join your coalition. We can offer trade, technology, a network of contacts in Council space." Tehran paused. "But we need protection. If we openly defy the Council, they will crush us." Daniel looked at Helen. She nodded slightly. They had discussed this possibility many times. "How many species are we talking about?" Daniel asked. "To start, just mine. 20 billion people across 12 worlds." Tehran pulled up a hologram. It showed a cluster of star systems near the border of Council space. "But there are others who feel the same way. The Valan, the Korathi, even some human colonies that are tired of Earth's government. If we succeed, they will follow." Victor spoke up. "This is what we have been waiting for. The Council has grown too comfortable, too sure of their power. We show them that there is an alternative." "And when they send their fleet to stop us?" Jake asked. "Then we fight," Kreenax said. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "My people have waited generations for revenge. The Council enslaved us, broke us, made us into servants. I will die before I kneel to them again." Daniel stood and walked to the window. Below, workers were loading supplies onto a ship. Humans and aliens working side by side. 5 years ago, he had been alone in a cell. Now he had an empire. But was it enough? Could they really stand against the Council? He thought about the ancient technology Patricia had found. The ruins on that planet Vex had controlled. It had taken them 6 months to take that planet. The battle had been hard. They had lost good people, but what they found had been worth it. The ruins were from a species called the Precursors. They had existed millions of years ago, and had technology that made Council science look primitive. Patricia and her team had spent 4 years studying it. They had unlocked faster-than-light communications, advanced weapons, shield technology that could stop anything the Council had. That technology had made them strong, but it also made them a target. Daniel turned back to the table. "Before I give you an answer, Ambassador, I need to know something." Are your people ready for war? Because that's what this will mean. The council won't let us exist peacefully. They'll come for us. Tehran didn't hesitate. My people have been preparing for this for 10 years. We have hidden factories, secret shipyards, weapons the council doesn't know about. We're not asking you to protect us. We're offering to stand with you. Daniel looked at each person in the room. Jake, who had been with him from the start. Patricia, who had believed in his vision. Victor, who had turned his anger into strategy. Helen, who had given up everything to join them. Krenax, who fought for freedom. All right, Daniel said. We're in. But we do this my way. No preemptive strikes. We defend ourselves, but we don't start the war. I won't become what the council thinks I am. What if they attack first? Krenax asked. Then we make them regret it, Daniel said simply. The meeting ended. Tehran left to send word to his people. The others started planning for what would come next. Helen stayed behind. You know this changes everything, right? Once the council learns we're accepting member species, they'll have to respond. I know, Daniel said. How long do we have? Maybe a month. Maybe less. They'll send scouts first. Then diplomats. Then a fleet. Helen crossed her arms. General Craig Bennett will probably lead it. He's been tracking our activities for years. I remember Bennett, Daniel said. Good officer. Follows orders. That's what worries me. He won't hesitate. Helen pulled up a tactical display. Our fleet is good, but we're outnumbered 10-1. If the council decides to crush us, they can. Then we need to make sure they can't afford to, Daniel said. Patricia, how close are we to replicating the precursor communications array? Patricia looked up from her tablet. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Once it's online, we can communicate instantly across the galaxy. No lag time. No interception. The council's communication monopoly will be broken. That's when we make our move, Daniel said. We offer the technology to every species that wants it. Free. No strings attached. We show them that the council has been hoarding knowledge for centuries. Victor smiled. You want to start a revolution? I want to give people a choice, Daniel corrected. The council maintains power through control of information. We break that control, and everything changes. Over the next 3 weeks, they worked around the clock. The communications array was finished ahead of schedule. Patricia tested it personally. The results were better than expected. They could now talk to anyone anywhere in the galaxy with 0 delay. Daniel sent messages to 30 different species. Minor species, oppressed species, species that had no voice in the council. The message was simple. There is an alternative. Join us. The responses came back within hours. Some were interested, some were afraid. But all of them were listening. The council noticed. Of course they noticed. General Craig Bennett arrived at the border of the Void Sector with a fleet of 50 ships. He sent a message demanding that Daniel surrender and disband his coalition. Daniel sent a message back. It was broadcast to every species in the galaxy. General Bennett, I have nothing but respect for you as an officer. But I will not surrender. The council banished me for doing what was right. They threw me away because I was inconvenient. They're doing the same thing to millions of beings across the galaxy. We're building something different here. A place where all species are equal. Where leaders are chosen for their ability, not their species. Where knowledge is shared, not hoarded. We don't want war, but we won't back down. If the council wants to attack us, they'll have to explain to every species in the galaxy why they're killing people who only want freedom. The message went viral. Within a day, it had been seen by billions. Protests started on council worlds. Minor species demanded reform. Even some major species began to question the council's actions. General Bennett didn't attack. He held position at the border and waited for new orders. In the conference room, Daniel's team celebrated their small victory. They're not going to let this go, Helen warned. Bennett is probably getting chewed out right now for not attacking immediately. Good, Daniel said. The longer they wait, the stronger we get. And the more people start asking questions. Jake raised a glass. To asking questions. To finding answers, Patricia added. To freedom, Krenak said. They drank together. Outside the window, more ships arrived. Not warships. Transport ships. Cargo ships. Ships full of people who had heard Daniel's message and wanted to join. The Empire was growing. And the Council was starting to realize they had created something they couldn't control. Daniel watched the ships dock and thought about the trial 5 years ago. Zexthor had said he was teaching Daniel a lesson. He had been right. Just not the lesson he intended. Daniel had learned that the Council's power came from fear, from control, from making people believe there was no alternative. But there was always an alternative. You just had to be brave enough to build it. The war was coming. Daniel knew that. But when it came, he would be ready. And he wouldn't be alone. The Council moved faster than Daniel expected. He was in the command center when the alarms went off. Helen ran to the tactical display. Massive fleet jump. Meridian Gate. 80 ships. Maybe more. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. Meridian Gate was the main passage between void space and Council territory. If they lost control of it, the Council could cut them off completely. Who's commanding? Daniel asked. Helen checked the readings. Her face went pale. Captain Ryan Mitchell. The name hit Daniel like a punch. Ryan Mitchell had been his best friend for 20 years. They had gone through academy together, fought together, saved each other's lives more times than Daniel could count. Are you sure? Daniel asked. Positive. His command ship just broadcast Council authority codes. Helen looked at him. I'm sorry. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his voice was steady. Get everyone to battle stations. Send word to all allied ships. We're going to the gate. The fleet assembled quickly. Daniel's flagship, the Defiant, led the formation. 20 ships against 80. The odds were terrible, but they had advantages. Better technology. Better training. And they were fighting for something they believed in. The jump to Meridian Gate took 2 hours. When they arrived, the Council fleet was already in position. They had formed a blockade across the entire passage. Nothing could get through without a fight. Daniel stood on the bridge and stared at the view screen. Somewhere in that fleet was Ryan. His brother, in everything but blood. Incoming transmission, the communications officer said. Put it through. The screen changed. Ryan Mitchell appeared. He looked older. Tired. But his eyes were still sharp. He wore the uniform of a council captain with medals Daniel recognized. They had earned some of those medals together. Daniel, Ryan said. His voice was neutral, professional. Ryan, Daniel replied. It's been a long time. 5 years. I heard what happened at your trial. I tried to speak for you, but they wouldn't let me testify. I know. I got your messages afterward. Daniel paused. Why are you here? Orders. The Council has declared your coalition a terrorist organization. I'm here to shut you down. Ryan leaned forward. It doesn't have to be a fight. Surrender. Disband your fleet. Maybe we can work something out. You know I can't do that. Can't or won't? Both. Daniel kept his voice calm. Ryan, the Council is wrong. You know it. I know you've seen what they do to species that don't fall in line. The corruption, the lies. Every government has problems, Ryan said. That doesn't mean you tear it all down. I'm not tearing it down. I'm building an alternative. Daniel gestured to his crew. Half my bridge crew is from species the Council treats like servants. They're just as capable as anyone. They deserve better. Ryan was quiet for a moment. I have my orders, Daniel. If you don't surrender, I have to attack. Then attack. But know that every person who dies here is on the Council's hands. Not mine. We're not the aggressors. You're harboring criminals. You're stealing Council technology. You're encouraging rebellion across a dozen systems. Ryan's voice got harder. That sounds like aggression to me. We freed people the Council abandoned. We shared technology the Council hoarded. We gave hope to species that had none. Daniel met Ryan's eyes through the screen. When did that become a crime? Before Ryan could answer, another voice cut in. It came from a different ship in the Council fleet. Enough talking. The screen split. A new face appeared. Supreme Chancellor Dracor, the leader of the entire Galactic Council. The alien looked like a mass of tentacles wrapped around a central body. Daniel Carter, you are a criminal and a traitor. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Chancellor, Daniel said. With respect, I'm not a member of your council anymore. You made sure of that when you banished me. I owe you nothing. You owe us your life, Dracor said. We could have executed you. Instead, we showed mercy. You call banishment mercy? You took everything from me. My career, my honor, my home. Daniel's voice was cold. And now you're surprised that I built a new home? You built a threat to galactic peace. I built a place where all species are equal, where knowledge is free, where leaders earn their position through ability, not birthright. Daniel looked directly at the Chancellor. If that's a threat to you, maybe you should ask yourself why. Dracor's tentacles writhed in anger. Captain Mitchell, you have authorization to fire. Destroy them. The transmission cut off. Ryan's face remained on the screen. He looked conflicted. Ryan, Daniel said quietly, you don't have to do this. I have my orders. You have a choice. Everyone here has a choice. That's what the Council hates. They want obedient servants. I'm offering you something else. Ryan was silent. Then he said, prepare to defend yourself. The transmission ended. Helen moved to Daniel's side. Orders? Hold position. Don't fire unless fired upon. I want every moment of this recorded and broadcast across the galaxy. Let everyone see who shoots first. The fleets faced each other across empty space. Tension built. Seconds felt like hours. Then the Council fleet opened fire. Evasive maneuvers, Daniel commanded. Return fire. Target weapons only. I don't want unnecessary casualties. The battle began. The Defiant shook as energy blasts hit their shields. But the shields held. Precursor technology made them stronger than anything the Council had. Daniel's fleet moved like a dancer. They were outnumbered, but they were faster, more precise. Every shot counted. Incoming transmission, someone called out. Not from Mitchell. It's from another Council ship. Put it through. A new face appeared. Admiral Charles Wright, commander of the Council's Third Fleet. Captain Carter, I'm breaking formation. My fleet won't fire on civilians. 3 ships peeled away from the Council formation, then 5 more, then 10. Ryan's voice came through on emergency channels. Admiral Wright, you are disobeying direct orders. I am following my conscience, Wright replied. I joined the Council to protect people, not to slaughter them for asking for freedom. More ships broke away. The Council fleet was falling apart. On New Haven, Dr. Alice Freeman sat in her lab and made a decision. She had been a Council scientist for 30 years. She had access to classified files. Secret projects, things the Council didn't want anyone to know about. She copied everything, every file, every project, every dirty secret. Then she broadcast it all. The galaxy watched as proof of Council corruption flooded the networks. Plans to commit genocide against rebellious species. Economic schemes to keep minor species poor. Technology deliberately kept secret to maintain power. It all came out in one massive data dump. On the battlefield, Ryan Mitchell watched his fleet collapse. Half his ships had stopped firing. Some were actively joining Daniel's side. He opened a direct channel to Daniel. You planned this. No, Daniel said. I gave people a choice. They made it. The Chancellor won't let this stand. He'll send more fleets, bigger ones. Then we'll fight those too. Or maybe by then, enough people will have seen the truth. Daniel paused. Ryan, You can still choose. You don't have to follow orders that are wrong. Ryan looked at his tactical display. His fleet was in shambles. The mission was a failure. But more than that, he had seen the evidence. The files that Dr. Freeman had released, the proof that everything Daniel had said was true. "Cease fire," Ryan ordered. The shooting stopped. Space fell silent except for the hum of engines and the crackle of damaged systems. Ryan's ship moved forward, alone. It approached the Defiant slowly. "Permission to come aboard," Ryan said. Daniel smiled. "Granted." They met in the docking bay. Ryan stepped off his shuttle wearing his council uniform. Daniel waited for him in simple civilian clothes. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Ryan held out a data chip. "Everything I know about Council fleet movements. Base locations. Command codes." He dropped the chip in Daniel's hand. "I can't believe I'm doing this." "You're doing what's right," Daniel said. "The Council will call it treason." "The Council calls a lot of things treason. Doesn't make them right." Ryan laughed. It was a tired sound. "I thought you were crazy when I heard what you were building. A government based on merit and equality. It sounded impossible." It is impossible. Until you do it." Daniel gestured around the ship. "We're not perfect. We make mistakes. But we're trying to be better. That's more than the Council can say." Ryan took off his metal bar and tossed it aside. "So what now?" "Now we prepare. The Chancellor won't give up. He'll send everything he has to crush us. Then we'll need more allies." Ryan looked at Daniel. "I know officers in the fleet. Good people who are tired of following corrupt orders. Give me access to your communications array. I'll reach out to them." Done. Over the next week, the galaxy watched as the Council crumbled. Species across the entire expanse of space rose up, demanding reform. Some demanded independence. Others wanted representation. The Council tried to crush the rebellions. But their fleets were divided. Officers were defecting. Resources were stretched too thin. Daniel stood in the command center and watched reports flood in. His coalition was growing faster than he could track. 20 species had joined. Then 30. Then 50. Helen approached with a message. "The Velen Confederation just declared independence. They're asking to join us." "Accept them," Daniel said. "The Karathi Alliance is requesting defensive assistance. The Council is threatening to blockade their worlds. Send ships. We protect our own." Jake walked in looking exhausted but happy. "You know what we need? A proper government. Representatives from each species. Laws that everyone agrees on. The whole democratic thing." Daniel nodded. "I've been thinking about that. We'll hold elections. Real ones. Every species gets a voice." "Even you?" Jake asked. "Especially me. I don't want absolute power. That's what the Council has. It corrupts them." Victor joined them, studying a tactical map. "The Council is consolidating what's left of their fleet. They're going to make one final push. Everything they have." "How long?" Daniel asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Daniel looked out the viewport at the fleet that had grown around New Haven. Hundreds of ships now, from dozens of species. All of them united by a simple idea. That freedom was worth fighting for. "Then we have 2 weeks to prepare," Daniel said. "Send word to all allied forces. The final battle is coming." The Council's final fleet gathered at the edge of Council Prime, the capital world. 200 ships, every available vessel pulled from across the galaxy. It was the largest military force ever assembled. Supreme Chancellor Dracor stood in the command center and looked at the display with satisfaction. "This ends today. We will crush the rebels and restore order." But even as he spoke, cracks were showing. Half the member species had withdrawn from the Council. Others were in open revolt. The government that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was falling apart. On Earth, President Nathan Cross made a decision that changed everything. He had watched Daniel's broadcasts, seen the evidence of Council corruption. Read the reports from allied species. He called an emergency session of Earth's government. The Council has betrayed everything they claim to stand for, Cross said. They've lied to us, used us, treated minor species like slaves. I'm calling for a vote. Does Earth remain with the Council, or join the new coalition? The vote wasn't even close. Earth left the Council. When the news reached Daniel, he was in the middle of a strategy session. The room went silent as the announcement played. Earth just declared independence, Helen said, stunned. Your homeworld is joining us. Daniel felt something loosen in his chest. For 5 years, he had been an exile from Earth. A criminal. Now his planet was standing with him. Send a message to President Cross, Daniel said. Thank him. Tell him we'll coordinate our fleets. More announcements came in rapid succession. The Velen Confederation. The Karathi Alliance. The Silaran Collective. Species from across the galaxy were choosing sides. Most of them chose freedom. Ambassador Karen Powell arrived at New Haven 2 days later. She was a council diplomat, but she came under a flag of truce. Daniel met her in his office. It was a simple room. No grand decorations, just a desk and chairs and a window looking out at the station. Captain Carter, Karen said, I'm here to offer terms. I'm listening. The Council will grant you full pardon. Restoration of your rank. A seat on the Council itself. In exchange, you disband your coalition and convince your allies to return to Council authority. Daniel almost laughed. After everything that's happened, you think I want a seat on the Council? It's a generous offer. It's a desperate offer. Daniel stood and walked to the window. The Council is dying. You know it. I know it. They're trying to buy me off before the whole thing collapses. Karen was quiet for a moment. Then she said, not everyone on the Council is corrupt. Some of us believe in reform, in change. But change takes time. Change takes courage, Daniel corrected. The Council has had 10,000 years to get it right. They chose power over justice every single time. Now, they're paying the price. And what will you replace it with? Your coalition? You've been building for 5 years. The Council has maintained peace for millennia. They maintained control. That's not the same as peace. Daniel turned to face her. I'm not trying to destroy the Council. I'm offering an alternative. A system where all species are equal. Where leaders are chosen by merit. Where knowledge is shared freely. That's idealistic. Better than cynical. Daniel sat back down. Ambassador, I don't hate the Council. I hate what it's become. If they want to reform, truly reform, then I'll work with them. But they have to prove it. How? By giving up their power. By allowing free elections. By letting species choose their own path. Daniel leaned forward. The Council needs to become what it always claimed to be. A place for cooperation, not domination. Karen stood. I'll take your message back. But the Chancellor won't accept those terms. Then we'll settle this another way. She left. Daniel knew what was coming next. The final battle happened 3 weeks later. The Council fleet jumped into the New Haven system with overwhelming force. 200 ships against the Coalition's 120. But numbers weren't everything. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Defiant and watched the Council fleet approach. Beside him were Ryan, Helen, Victor, and representatives from a dozen species. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It belonged to everyone. They're hailing us, the communications officer said. Put it through. Supreme Chancellor Dracor appeared on the screen. Captain Carter, this is your last chance. Surrender, or be destroyed. I have a better idea, Daniel said. How about we let the galaxy decide? What? A vote. Every species, every world. They choose between the old Council and the new system. Majority rules. Daniel smiled. Unless you're afraid of democracy, Dracor's tentacles writhed in anger. The Council does not bow to mob rule. No, you bow to fear and corruption. Daniel's voice was cold. Fire if you want, Chancellor. But know that every species in the galaxy is watching. They'll see the Council attacking people who only want freedom. They'll see your true face." The transmission cut off. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Council fleet began to move forward. "Here we go," Helen said quietly. But before the first shot was fired, something unexpected happened. Ships in the Council fleet began to break formation. Not just a few. Dozens of them. Admiral Charles Wright's voice came through on open channels. "All ships refusing to fire on civilians, form up on my position. We're done following corrupt orders." More than half the Council fleet joined him. The remaining ships hesitated, confused. On Council Prime, riots broke out. Citizens of every species took to the streets demanding change. The government buildings were surrounded. Inside the Council chambers, members began to flee. Some tried to escape off-world. Others barricaded themselves inside, hoping the military would save them, but the military was gone. Most of it had defected. What remained was scattered and leaderless. The Council fell not with a battle but with a whimper. 3 days later, Daniel stood in those same chambers where he had been tried and banished. But everything was different now. The Council seats were empty. The chamber was full of representatives from hundreds of species. Each one waiting to see what would happen next. President Nathan Cross was there, representing Earth. Ambassador Tehran represented the Silaran. Admiral Charles Wright represented the reformed military. Even Ambassador Karen Powell was there, looking tired but hopeful. Daniel walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where he had stood in chains 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I stood here as a criminal," Daniel began. "The Council judged me, found me guilty, banished me to die in the void." He looked around at the crowd. "They thought they were teaching me a lesson. They were right, just not the lesson they intended. I learned that power corrupts, that systems built on fear and control eventually collapse, that the only thing worth building is something that serves everyone, not just the powerful. So today, I'm proposing something new. Not the Council. Not my coalition. Something better." He pulled up a hologram. It showed a structure. A government. The Galactic Assembly. Every species gets representation based on population. Leaders are elected, not appointed. Terms are limited. No one serves for life. Technology and knowledge are shared freely. Trade is fair. Military force is only used for defense, never conquest. Most importantly, no species is considered superior to another. We're all equal, all valuable, all deserving of dignity and freedom. The chamber was silent. Then President Cross stood. "Earth supports this proposal." Ambassador Tehran stood. "The Silaran Collective supports it." One by one, representatives stood. Within minutes, the entire chamber was on its feet. The vote was held the next day. Every species across the galaxy participated. It was the largest democratic event in history. Billions of beings casting their choice. The results came in over several hours. Species after species chose the new system. Even some of the old Council species voted for change. When it was over, 83% of the galaxy had chosen the Galactic Assembly. A new government was born. Elections were held for the assembly positions. Daniel was offered the position of first speaker, the leader of the entire government. He refused. "I'm not a politician," he said. "I'm a soldier. Give me a role where I can serve, not rule." Instead, he accepted the position of defense coordinator. His job was to build a military that protected everyone, not just the powerful. Ryan became his deputy. Helen commanded the main fleet. Victor ran the strategic planning division. The first session of the Galactic Assembly was held a month later. Representatives from 300 species gathered in the newly renovated chambers. Daniel stood at the entrance and watched them file in. Humans and aliens. Former enemies working together. Building something new. President Cross approached him. "You did it. You actually changed the galaxy." "We did it," Daniel corrected. "All of us. But you started it. When they banished you, They thought they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they created a revolution. Daniel thought about that day 5 years ago. Standing in chains, hearing the verdict, being dragged away while the council watched. He had told them they would regret it. He had been right, but not for the reasons they feared. They regretted it because he had built something better. Something that exposed their corruption and hypocrisy. Something that gave people hope. Inside the chamber, the first session was beginning. A representative from a small agricultural species was speaking. Her people had been ignored by the old council for generations. Now she had a voice. Everyone did. Lisa Morgan walked up beside Daniel. She looked older now, retired from active duty, but she had come to see the first session. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for testifying against you, for not standing up when it mattered." Daniel looked at her. For a moment, he felt the anger from 5 years ago. The betrayal. Then he let it go. "You did what you thought was right at the time," he said. "We all make choices. The important thing is learning from them." "Have you learned anything?" Lisa asked. Daniel thought about it. "I learned that being right isn't enough. You have to be willing to fight for what's right. To risk everything. To build something better even when everyone says it's impossible." "And was it worth it?" 5 years in exile. The battles. The people you lost. Daniel looked out at the assembly. Representatives were debating a new trade agreement, arguing passionately but respectfully. Working together despite their differences. "Yes," he said, "it was worth it." Across the chamber, Senator Gregory Blake sat in a corner, stripped of his position and awaiting trial for corruption. He had tried to run when the council fell. He hadn't made it far. He caught Daniel's eye and quickly looked away. Daniel felt nothing. No satisfaction. No desire for revenge. Blake had made his choices. Now he would face the consequences. The session continued. Laws were proposed. Debates were held. Votes were taken. It was messy and loud and chaotic. It was democracy. Daniel turned to leave. He had work to do. A military to rebuild. Alliances to strengthen. A galaxy to protect. As he walked through the corridors, he passed a memorial wall. It listed the names of everyone who had died fighting for freedom. Human and alien names mixed together. Each one a person who had believed in something better. He stopped and placed his hand on the wall. "We did it," he said quietly. "We built something worth dying for." Outside, the sun was setting over Council Prime. The city looked different now. Cleaner. Brighter. Full of hope instead of fear. Daniel walked out into the evening air. Somewhere above, his fleet was maintaining patrol, protecting the new government, making sure no one could threaten what they had built. He thought about the council's final words to him 5 years ago. What can one man do alone? He had answered that question. One man could spark a revolution, could inspire others, could build an empire not of conquest but of cooperation. But he hadn't done it alone. He had done it with Jake and Patricia and Victor and Helen and Ryan and thousands of others who believed in the same dream, that every being deserved freedom. That merit mattered more than species. That unity was stronger than division. The council had tried to teach him that mercy was weakness. Instead, he had taught the galaxy that mercy was strength, that justice was more powerful than fear, that hope could overcome any obstacle. Daniel looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there were species still struggling under oppression, still fighting for freedom, still hoping for a better tomorrow. The work wasn't done. It would never be done. Freedom had to be defended every day, protected, nurtured. But for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had a chance. A real chance at peace built on equality instead of domination. And that was worth everything he had sacrificed. Daniel Carter, the exiled captain who had been banished to die alone in the void, had returned, not as a conqueror, not as a tyrant, but as a builder. He had forged an empire of unmatched power. An empire built not on weapons or fear, but on the simple belief that every being deserved dignity, freedom, and hope, and the galaxy would never be the same.